Today, I want to tell probably the greatest story hardly ever told in American Black history. I was very disappointed that I had never heard of this story until just recently, and I don't know who to blame for that. My ancestors, the history books I read in school. I attended 3 universities, and yet no one had ever taught this. They taught Martin Luther King Jr., they taught Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, but not this. And I wonder why that is. This is the story I want my kids to hear about in school. They're teaching your kids about Picasso, Da Vinci, Mozart, Beethoven, their history, what their people reflect on with pride. But they're not teaching the stories my people can reflect on with pride. The powers that be in the movie industry make these black movies, these horribly depressing black movies over and over again, purpose to remind you of when they had your ancestors bound, serving them. But none of these movie producers ever saw fit to tell this story. So the Most High has blessed me with this platform, and today I want to tell the story. It was a point in Black American history when we were successful, and quite soon after slavery, built a $1 million community self-sufficiently without the help of white ex-slave masters. We lived well. We were rich, some wealthy, reminiscent of when we were kings and queens in our own land, except now ex-victims of slavery. Still victims of hate and discrimination, but still able to establish what is today known as one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, Black communities in the United States in the early 1900s. And for those of you who know me, you know Black is not a term I prefer to use. Black is a crayon color in a crayon box. Black is not a true identity. I believe many of the victims of the transatlantic slave trade were indeed Hebrew, descendants of the Israelite nation, not of African origin, but Hebrews residing in Africa after having escaped generations of persecution. But Black is a common term, so for the sake of this story, I will use it. Black Wallstreet. It was located in a neighborhood called Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Between 1834 and 1907, it was Indian territory. The 1907 Oklahoma Enabling Act ended the existence of an Indian territory and turned it into Oklahoma State. Around that time, ex-slaves and descendants of slavery began to migrate there. It was a place they could escape the memory of enslavement. It gave them a chance to experience life in a place where racism was not as prevalent. They got there any way they could, trains, wagons, some of them even walked. J.B. Stratford was the son of a freed Kentucky slave. He came to Tulsa in 1899 and became a Black entrepreneur. He promoted Blacks coming together and supporting each other's businesses. He purchased land and subdivided it to sell it to Blacks exclusively. He built the Stratford Hotel on Greenwood Avenue, which was said to be the largest Black-owned hotel in the U.S. Stratford paved the way for other entrepreneurs like O.W. Gurley. Gurley was a wealthy Black landowner from Arkansas who relocated to Tulsa in 1906, where he purchased 40 acres, which he also intended only to sell to Blacks who came there. His first businesses were rooming houses along Greenwood Avenue. He housed Blacks running from oppression. So what you see is Black people in positions of power, helping other Black people climb up that ladder and share that success. Gurley then bought an 80-acre farm and continued to build businesses and buildings that housed more businesses like barber shops, cigar stores, pool houses. He also founded what's known today as Vernon AME Church. He built the Gurley Hotel at 112 North Greenwood. Stratford and Gurley supported their people, and so Black people were able to come up, and they did, and in turn they supported one another. We don't see too much of that depicted on television today. That's not the image they want us to see of ourselves. This was the humble beginnings of Greenwood. The community got its name because it was centered on a major street, Greenwood Avenue, but it was unique because it didn't penetrate the white neighborhoods, so it was their safe haven in every sense of the term. But just west of there, the KKK dwelled, as an intimidating presence for Blacks that needed to commute through town. But in Greenwood, they were safe. There were segregation laws in place that prevented them from shopping in white neighborhoods, so they really had no choice but to shop in Greenwood. But in doing so, they were able to realize wealth and financial stability within themselves. They didn't have to worry about being treated lesser than or like animals. They were kings and queens in their own town, able to enjoy the fruits of their own labor like they deserved. They got to work hard and play hard, take vacations, enjoy their families, watch their kids grow and not be killed by white oppressors. Young black men went to college with pride, suited up, proud of who they were, without being harassed by a white man seeking to put them in their place. They no longer had to step off the sidewalk for the white people walking towards them. In Greenwood, they were just as worthy of walking down a sidewalk as any other. They built up their businesses and watched them grow. They were securing their financial future. Our people were living their own lives, truly free for the first time since the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. They continued to establish many businesses, grocery stores, banks, libraries. Greenwood, in fact, became the wealthiest black community in the United States at that time, full of businesses owned by black multimillionaires, doctors, dentists, lawyers, realtors, journalists. And in all their success, they never once went over to the white neighborhoods to torment them, prove that they were better than them, kill their people, to turn the tables of slavery over. That's not the spirit our people carried. They established themselves and laid stepping stones of integrity for their kids to model after. Greenwood became the Black Wall Street. On the foundations of what J.B. Stratford and O.W. Gurley established, black people built their businesses there. They built their own homes there. They shopped there. The dollar circulated up to 1,000 times within this black community, up to a year before actually leaving the community. They partied there, had nightclubs, movie theaters, restaurants, enjoyed live entertainment. They had it all, unaffected by the hate of whites. And there were no shootings, no gang activity. No one was hating on the other. That competitive spirit that we carry today as a people, trying to prove we are somebody and we're about something, back then they were all in the same boat and they knew it. Descendants of slavery. Everywhere they turned, a white man was dreaming about lynching them. They had to deal with that hate every single day, living amongst people that would love to see them all dead. It was no joke. The goal wasn't to make the most money, drive the nicest cars. The goal was to stay alive in a world where people around them hated them. And so they supported one another. They didn't compete with one another. They were one people, united. And Greenwood was the place where they could be that. But white people never expected them to be that successful. They were thinking these people were our slaves not too long ago. They're supposed to be barbaric animals, running scared from us. Instead, they're running multi-million-dollar corporations in their own neighborhoods. That wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to be so dumb, so naive, they'd come running back praying to be our slave again. But it turned out, when left alone, when not harassed, these people are just as intelligent as us. They're doing better than some of us. The theory had been disproven. Whites were no greater than blacks. Blacks were no lesser than whites, and they were not happy about that. Greenwood became a very successful community, and whites watched it grow over the course of a decade. By 1921, it was home to about 10 to 15,000 black men, women, and children. And yes, Tulsa was segregated. From the outside looking in, white people called Greenwood Little Africa and other degrading names. But blacks didn't care as long as those names were called from a distance. All whites could do was sit on the sidelines and watch. Look at how black people were able to flourish and overcome oppression and discrimination and finally live like free human beings. Now, if I was a remorseful white descendant of a slave owner living in that day, I'd be happy for them. Thank goodness, in spite of what my people did to them, they were able to overcome it and excel in life. But unfortunately, that's not the spirit this white generation had. They carried the hate of their ancestors. They didn't have peace unless the black man was under their feet or dead. And that's the satanic evil spirit these people had. On June 1st, 1921, a mob of angry, jealous whites invaded Greenwood and torched about 35 blocks worth of homes and businesses. Their excuse? They were angry that a black man named Dick Rowland was acquitted of an assault charge against a white girl. Although there was no evidence that this man had done anything, the mob wanted to kill Rowland anyway. A group of armed white men gathered outside the jail where Rowland was held, so a group of armed black men from Greenwood gathered there also to protect him. There was an argument, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, a white man tries to take a gun away from a black man. They struggled. A gunshot was fired into the air. Then others started to shoot, after which whites flooded into Greenwood to destroy it, something they had been dying to do since the start of the town's success. They destroyed businesses, homes. They shot, they burned, and they lynched black men, women, and children. It was slavery all over again. Over 600 businesses lost, including 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, 2 movie theaters, a hospital, a bank, a post office, schools, libraries, law offices, and a bus system destroyed. Almost everything blacks built in Greenwood over a 10 to 15-year time frame, white people had completely destroyed. The whites of Tulsa stole 6 private airplanes owned by 6 black men. Some say those who stole it were local and national law enforcement. Some say they were KKK members working in conjunction with local and national officials. Nonetheless, these stolen planes were flown over Greenwood and used to throw cocktail bombs of dynamite sticks from the sky, making this riot the very first terrorist attack bombing from the sky with a plane in the United States. At this point, it becomes quite clear this had nothing to do with Dick Rowland's acquittal. This act of hatred was anticipated, premeditated, and pre-planned, waiting on the perfect opportunity to be implemented. It became a nonstop war that didn't diffuse with just the shooting at the jailhouse. They took it all the way to lynching children, hijacking planes to bomb the city because one man was acquitted of a charge. Imagine the kind of hatred it takes towards a people to get to the point of wanting to destroy an entire town and lynch the people in it, children included. It didn't take an acquittal to spark up this hate. This hate was already there. Up to 300 killed and 800 injured. The American Red Cross estimated up to 10,000 people were left homeless and lived in tents well into the winter of 1921. The remaining citizens tried to rebuild, but could never get the town back to its former glory. J.B. Stratford was a peacemaker during the riots, but was arrested anyway, as many other innocent blacks were. He made bail and left Tulsa for Chicago as a fugitive. He had lost his fortune and the hotel he owned, but he went on to Chicago to become a successful lawyer, and his descendants today include lawyers, judges, professors, and diplomats. In 1996, his descendants attended a ceremony in Greenwood in which authorities dropped charges accusing him of inciting the 1921 riot. Although he passed away in 1935, his family wanted to make certain his name was clear. He deserved that much, as do all who were falsely charged for defending their family, their property, and their wealth. There was economic downfall in the 60s, and much of Greenwood was leveled in the 70s to make room for a freeway. Today, what's left of the community is considered the Greenwood Historical District. The Greenwood Cultural Center was created in 1995 as a tribute to Black Wallstreet and a symbol of hope for the community's future. The Tulsa race riot of 1921 was one of the worst incidences of violence against blacks. Over the course of 12 to 16 hours, white people pretty much destroyed the multi-million-dollar community that blacks had established and built from the ground up. In my attempt to understand hate, please understand I do not promote it. What's happened to my people, not only on Black Wall Street, but all of the atrocities they have endured as a nation, as victims of slavery and discrimination in this country, is not a testament of their weakness. It's a testament of the evil that resided in the people who murdered them. I can't explain the hatred. I don't understand it. I can only tell the story. It's the same morals and values that founded this country. Kill everybody and steal everything. Different generation, same evil spirit. And it makes me wonder how many white people of my generation carry this same mentality. Because I love everybody, but the reality is everybody doesn't love me. And in acknowledging that truth, you're not exercising reverse racism. You're just guarding yourself with knowledge and truth, getting from behind the smoke and mirrors. This is what we have to deal with in this country. One minute you're supporting someone you know and love on TV and music industry or whatever. Next thing you know, they're calling somebody the N-word, and it's like, oh, you still carry that mentality. You see my people that way. You just never know until you know who hates you, and then you know. That's what we have to deal with. Truth, there are pure-hearted white people who love you, but there are whites who inherited the hate of their forefathers, and they can't stand you, but they won't tell you. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking you don't deserve to be in their presence. Hate is real, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's not. My people didn't create hate here in America, but today we're left having to deal with hate, respond to it, digest how one is supposed to behave in the midst of it, in the midst of hate. How do you react to a nation built on its hate for you, built on the blood of your ancestors? My persuasion is that we do not become the barbarians we were created to become. Let our story be one of triumph and not demise. Like the blacks of Greenwood, rise above the hate and support one another. Love one another. Don't compete with one another. They wanted to divide us with hopes that that division would cause our demise, and that's exactly what's happening. Stop killing one another on the streets. That's what they want you to do. Kill each other and make their job easier. Stop stealing from one another and hurting one another, hating on one another. Stop competing with one another. Start lifting your brother and your sister up. As long as we are divided, we will always be a minority under the feet of the majority. Gain knowledge of who you are, not who you've been told you are, but who you truly are. We need to take back our self-identity. No man defines us. The Most High already has. It's okay to take your identity back because it's yours. And we don't need permission to walk in knowledge and truth. We don't need anyone to give us the okay to let go of false ideologies, vain traditions, and even pagan holiday celebrations that have been passed on to us as descendants of slavery. We may be free today, but remember, we are still victims of slavery by default. Don't think for one minute that you've been taught all the right things. I heard a man once say, how can we trust a nation that couldn't treat us right to teach us right? We can question the ideals and traditions passed on to us by the people who once hated us. The true story of our history has been altered. We've been told what to believe religiously, how we should serve the Most High, that our priorities should be money. We've been eating the worst foods, calling it soul, when it's really killing us. It's time to wake up and make better choices. Take control of our lives. Live right. Live holy. Live healthy. And teach our kids the same. Don't let your children fall through the cracks. Pick them up and teach them the truth. Don't let them become a statistic. And if you're just now learning the truth, fine. You and your kids can learn it together. But don't let another generation go by without instilling in them knowledge and truth, integrity and self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance. This is how we become built up as a nation. You've heard it before. Knowledge is power. It's the truth. I've never felt more powerful than I do now that I've heard the truth about who my people are and what we were chosen to do on this earth. Let's make certain the next generation knows who they are. The next time February rolls around and they want to talk about Martin Luther King some more, remember, you don't know your true history until you know who your ancestors were before slavery. I don't want to hear about the 50s and the 60s civil rights movement. That's all they want to teach you. Hearing about how whites continued to oppress my people even though they were free. I'm sick of hearing that. It's time we told the true history, the positive history, the story of my people as commandment keepers, Torah keepers, descendants of kings and queens and prophets who taught the standards of the Most High to the world. You can't take pride in who you are if you don't know it. And the reality is they don't want you to know it. They don't want you to know what you were before the 50s and 60s, what you were before they purchased you from Africa, what you were before Muslims enslaved you in Africa, what you were before you fled to Africa, why so many nations wanted you dead even back then, what the Bible says you are. They don't want you to know that. They'll call you every name in the book: anti-Semitic, occult, agents of Satan, whatever it takes to keep you, nation of Black Americans, from knowing your true Hebrew roots as children of the Most High. We may be living in a melting pot, but we can't forget who we are. Other nations acknowledge and take pride in their origins, and we have the right to take pride in ours. Don't let anyone call you a cult because you acknowledge who you are and reject what you've been told you should be. The Bible said we would be scattered among the nations and diminished to a byword, and so we were. But it's time to rise up and take up our mantle and walk. It's time for us to take pride in ourselves. No permission needed. Remember that. So we can't be afraid to come up from under the mentality that was fed to us and walk in truth. And stop waiting on someone to tell you it's okay to speak and it's okay to invest. It's okay to start that business. It's time to walk in the power and the anointing that the Most High has ordained for us to walk in. That's the fearlessness it took for the people of Black Wall Street to go from ex-slaves to millionaires. That's the fearlessness it will take for us to come up from under our slumber and walk in our God-given authority.